Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion with WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and editorial board. We first start off with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and then give you the latest USC Trojans football news. Let's first meet this week's panelists. Marc Kulkin, WeAreSC columnist who writes the Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season football and basketball practice reports. Chris Arledge, former William Jewell College defensive back and team captain, and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular column Musings with Arledge. Kevin Bruce, former all-conference linebacker and team captain for the 1975 USC Trojans. He's also a WeAreSC columnist who writes the defensively and offensively speaking after every USC game. Greg Katz, that's me, your host and moderator of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes the obvious and the not so obvious, and IMHO Sunday. Before we kick off this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, here's the latest USC football news as of today's Monday's taping. Last Thursday, 2021 Biletnikoff Award-winning wide receiver, All-American Jordan Addison made it official by announcing he would be playing for the Trojans in 2022. Addison, who will be a junior, played last season at Pittsburgh and is expected to play one season for the Trojans before heading off to the 2023 NFL Draft. The Trojans have also added another transfer and former San Jose State defensive lineman, Sinjin Astani, 6'4", 260, who has spent the last 5 seasons with the San Jose State Spartans. He comes to the Trojans as a preferred walk-on and will have 2 years of eligibility. FYI, Astani is a LA local, having played at his high school ball at Los Angeles Loyola, where he played both defensive tackle and fullback in short yardage situations. And the Pac-12 has basically scrapped its North-South divisional races officially in favor of having the top 2 teams in the conference with the best winning percentage for the conference title in Las Vegas. The new format, which will have a big effect on the Trojans 2022 championship and college football playoff hopes, is designed to get the conference into the college football playoff semifinal games. And the Trojans have opened up as a huge 34-point favorite to defeat the Rice Owls in the 2022 opener on Saturday, September 3rd in the Coliseum. Kickoff time is yet to be announced. And finally, friends, WeAreSC's Inside the Trojans Huddle greatly appreciates your viewership and listenership. And we appreciate and encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the red subscriber button and like buttons. It's greatly appreciated and it's free. All right, the first quarter. It's time for the opening kickoff on our first quarter topic, and it's a series of quick hitting questions. Last Thursday, wide receiver Jordan Addison, the 2021 Biletnikoff Award winner, while playing at the University of Pittsburgh, officially announced he is transferring to USC and will play for the Trojans in 2022. Panel, in your opinion, how does this affect both the Trojans wide receiver unit, the offense in general, the overall perception of the Trojans around the country, and recruiting? As always, we start off our leadoff hitter, Marc Kulkin. Marc, what do you think?
They're going to score a lot of points this year, or they're anticipating to. I think it was Terrell Bynum. He tweeted out, they're going to score points like a basketball game. And, if that's the case, great. I wouldn't mind watching USC have an offense like the old LMU teams in the, those of the 90s that had Bo Kimball, Hank Gathers, Paul Westhead that was coach. What's going to be interesting, though, is how the accolades kind of get shared. Jordan Addison led the country last year with 17 touchdown receptions. There's a lot of receivers in that USC room. So I think initially, Caleb Williams is going to try and set the table, show everybody, hey, this is the superstars, and then everybody's going to fill in around them. As far as the perception around the country, I think we're all been reading some of the hate, so to speak, that's coming out. They might have to, reset the calculus for the season. Lincoln Riley isn't waiting around. They plan to win this year. Everybody that they brought in is pretty much an older player with experience. They're not waiting. So as far as what is the addition of Jordan Addison bring? It's just one more nail that, hey, they want to win today, not tomorrow, not next year, today. And I think the rest of the country is kind of figuring that out as well.
All right, Arledge, has the country figured it out, or is SC a bunch of cheaters? What is USC perception? I'm kind of working backwards for the question. Then tell us what you think about the depth chart and things of that nature.
Yeah, look, it's all good for USC. I don't think it's true that USC tampered. I don't think it's true that USC offered the most money. But if the perception nationally is that USC is writing gigantic checks for football players, that's a good perception. That's helpful. I mean, when Caleb Williams goes to USC, he's a superstar changing teams, which doesn't happen very often. But you could say, okay, but he's following his coach. So while that raises USC's national prestige, it's also understandable. But when the returning Biletnikoff winner decides to leave and join USC, when he's being hotly pursued by Alabama and Texas, when his coach is having an absolute meltdown over the fact that he's losing a first-round talent, and everybody's paying attention to it, that tells a lot of people that USC is a destination in college football again, and that's a great thing. And you're seeing it with recruiting anyway. Players know that when USC is led by somebody who knows what they're doing, it's going to be an exciting place to play. It's going to be successful. It's going to be the best of college football and Hollywood mixed together. And so Jordan Addison coming over simply makes that perception even stronger. So that's great. In terms of what it's going to do for the football team this year, well, you just added a first-round talent at a skill position. Look, the wide receiving core was already pretty talented, I thought. And now everybody moves down a peg because this guy is probably better than everybody they already had. He's a superstar. He's a game breaker. He's a guy that can make the tough catches, but can also get behind you. And so now you have an additional superstar, and you have a lot of versatility. You have Kyle Ford and you have Brendan Rice. You have the big body guys. You have Mario Williams, and you have Jordan. Now you have these guys who are quicker, who can make big plays. There's a lot of talent there, and I agree. This USC offense is going to score a ton of points, because Lincoln Riley's too good an offensive coordinator. Caleb Williams is too good a quarterback. The receivers are good. The backs are good. There are 7 guys with a lot of starting experience on that offensive line. This offense is going to kill people. They may have to. We'll see what happens with the defense, but they're going to. And it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, finally, for the first time in how many years, it's going to be fun to watch a USC football game.
No question about it. Kevin, I know that you have some thoughts on this, and I know the frustration that we all had, basically, and I think Chris hit the nail on the point that these last several seasons have been brutal. And so we're all looking forward to it. And I think I personally I'm so excited about the season. I was trying to recall when I was this excited, and it's been a long time. Kevin, what about you? How do you see this in terms of, well, you came through when SC was really on top of the college football world. You know how the country was looking at USC during that early 70s. Talk about
they hated us about as much then as they do now, but for different reasons. We tended to beat the crap out of everybody, and that just made a lot of folks mad. We haven't done that yet, but what we have done, what everybody has said so far, which is spot on, is that we've got some players out there that are just scary good on offense. So let's be clear. But okay, putting points up is a good thing, never a bad thing. So that's exciting. It will be to Chris's point and others that it'll be fun to watch. I look at the running backs and I look at the wide receivers, and then I look at the O-line. All of a sudden, the O-line just got a whole lot better just because, right? You got guys that can make them look good, which versus the other way around. And I think, frankly, that's all good. From a recruiting perspective, this is just lights out home run stuff. Okay, mixed metaphor, but you get my point. It's awesome. And if people think that we're stroking big checks, fine, because it's stroking big check time until the NCAA does something about it and gets away with it, which I don't think, frankly, I think I'd love them to try something like this. I really would, because then they're going to have, they being the NCAA, are going to fight players, not coaches, not universities, people that actually play the game. And that would be just a lot of fun watching how that and the legal activity around NIL takes place. It's not that I'm a fan. It's just, look, it is. So, okay, fine. Make the most of it while you still can. And so I love it. So anyway, offense should be outstanding. Red zone, third down. We're not going to be like closing our eyes, wishing for something to happen. Oh, please, can something good happen on 3rd and 3? No, good things will be happening. And that's a nice, real good change of pace. And if you're on the other side of that line of scrimmage and you're playing defense against these types of players, yeah, you got a lot of coverage to figure out. Running backs that can run, wide receivers that can just light you up. They'll embarrass you. I mean, some of these guys, not just Addison, these guys can embarrass you, which is like very cool for us, bad for them. The running backs are, that we have, showed up in the spring game, and they showed up in their careers as well at other schools, and they bring a lot to the party that. If you're on the other side of the line of scrimmage, you're going, man, I'm not sure, what I'm going to defend first. I really don't know. I'll pick something. I'll try to take something away. And then, oh, by the way, you got a quarterback that can outrun you. Oh, yeah. That's a defensive nightmare. So
Kyle Ford said it best. You can't double team everyone.
No, you sure can't.
And Chris,
I'll just say a couple of quick words on what you guys have covered pretty much. I think it's going to be interesting to see this wide receiver unit group. It's going to really be a challenge to really say all for one and one for all, because they're all good. They all want to play, and hopefully they can stay on the same page. I think when you have that type of competition, it will up the competition. But I start to wonder, is anybody going to say, you know what, just by numbers, I don't think it's going to happen for me here. I hope it doesn't, but I think it's a possibility. I think the offense in general, and I want to hear from you guys on this after I'm done here. Is the addition of Addison, do you think, going to change Lincoln Riley's approach to offense in terms of his balance and what have you? Because we know at Pittsburgh, basically, Jordan Addison was the main guy along with Pickett, the quarterback. I think the overall perception of the Trojans around the country is, what's going to really matter? Nobody's going to think about the NIL and all this stuff. When SC opens up and you have Snoop Dogg on the sidelines, and I think one of you mentioned it, the celebrities there, the image across the country will be, man, I want to play there. That's where it's happening. And we've seen that before. So there's precedent there. As far as recruiting, I think I agree. It's a home run. Every kid is going to see. I mean, if SC plays as well as they can play next year, it's going to be one giant infomercial for USC's football program. And it's certainly been a long time in coming. But I'm going to end this segment because I want to hear from you guys. Do you think, Mark, that it's going to change the offense at all with the addition of Addison?
Well, what I was going to say was, and you're a historian of the game, and Kevin might even be able to answer this. Has there ever been a team that won the Heisman and Blitnikoff in the same season?
Not at USC.
We were talking about an infomercial. I can't think of a better way to sell USC, the offense, with a 2-time Blitnikoff winner and the reigning Heisman, if he was to win it this year. So yeah, no, it could be significant. That's something that Lincoln would definitely probably want to play. And if it leads to the team winning, I think everybody would get behind that. Sure.
Chris, what do you think? Is he going to alter his offense at all?
No. Lincoln Riley knows the importance of running the football. They ran the football at Oklahoma very well. He talks about it. Well, we've had other coaches that talk about it, but he talks about it all the time.
Don't mention any names, Chris.
Yeah, not yet.
He that was to say, he that shall not be named.
That's right. No, it doesn't change his approach. What it means is that he has one more fantastic talent to spread the ball to, and he'll take advantage of it. No, USC is going to run the football. They're going to be balanced. They'll probably run the ball more than they pass it, is my guess. It's just, I don't know what you do about that. You're going to bring a safety up into the box. Okay, you can do that. But then you've got problems all over the place. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting.
I know this is I shouldn't make this comparison, but I went back over the weekend. I watched some film of Michael Vick, and then I literally put the film of Caleb Williams right next to him. There's not a big difference. It's like that.
Caleb Williams is not as fast as Michael Vick. Michael Vick was a legitimate 4.3 guy, but Caleb Williams is very fast. And
powerful.
No,
That's
he's
what
a fantastic. He's a fantastic athlete.
Yeah, he's a better thrower too, frankly.
Kevin, what do you think? Is it going to change the offense? I mean, you're
Yeah.
a defensive guy.
Nah. You don't need to. You just need to use your resources that you have available in a way that exploits the guys on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And it's not going to be the same old offensive game plan every game, depending on who we play. But the core to the offense will be the same. How it gets moved and the motion, and there's some technicalities that we'll know more months from now with respect to some of the misdirection and I mean, by the way, I'm focused on the running game because Chris is right. What do you do when you're brand X and you're lining up against that group of wide receivers and that type of a quarterback? And by the way, you got some tight end talent that's a little bit kind of good too. I got to tell you, pick your poison. And when you pick wrong, you're going to get burned big time. Oh, well, and for us, that's like fun because it's been like forever since we've had anything like that before.
All right, let's go to the second quarter with this question. In a recent article in The Athletic, it was revealed that the entire revamping of the Trojans roster was given a big assist by a little-known NCAA rule, Rule 15.5.1.7, that essentially allows new coaches to cut players from the roster for up to a year after their hire, so long as the school continues to honor the player's scholarship if the player elects not to transfer. It's been reported that there are approximately 7 players at USC that are no longer on the roster, but are still having their scholarships honored. Panel, your thoughts on this little known rule, and is it a little too cold-blooded even if it gets the USC roster in the direction that Lincoln Riley wants it to go? Kevin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's cold-blooded at all. I just, welcome to the bigs. That's the way it rolls. You get an opportunity to get a degree from USC. That was what was offered early on, and that's still being offered if you're not, playing for the team. I got to tell you what, back in the day, gosh, I hate that. But back in the day was if a player was hurt and they were not going to be able to play, period. SC still honored their scholarship offer. Other schools, including the one in Westwood, did not. They would cut the guys. So it may be a little known rule to, this gang. It's not a little known rule to people like me who are always looking at, what we've got an honorable university with respect to the scholarship offer and making good on it regardless of the player situation. And I was always very proud of USC about that.
Mark, what are your thoughts? Cold-blooded, right thing to do? That's the way it is in today's ball. What do you see?
Yes, yes, and yes. There's another thing that USC does, and I'm sure other universities do as well. If you're a graduate student, they can ask you to move on to just a regular financial aid plan to free up a scholarship as well. So there's other ways to kind of manipulate the roster numbers, so to speak. I have no issue with this whatsoever. USC and the Pac-12 in general now, they're going to honor your scholarship once you've been at that university. So if you decide you don't want to play football anymore or whatever, you got 4 years of school that they're going to pay for. Trevor Trout, I think, was probably the last one who he showed up at USC, and I can't remember even him ever playing it down, but he went all the way through. He matriculated.
Very interesting. That was a good point on Trevor Trout. That's a really good specific example. Chris, what do you think about this? Cut him, waive him, whatever.
I don't think it's look, especially with the transfer portal, it's not cold-blooded at all. If a kid's not going to be able to play at USC and he still wants to play football, then he probably needs to go somewhere else anyway. It's good for him and good for the school, and he can do it. And if the kid doesn't care about playing football, then he still gets a free education. He can make the most of it. Here's the other thing about it. There are two reasons why guys are at the bottom of the depth chart and aren't playing. One of those reasons is because sometimes a guy just either doesn't have the talent that you thought he had when you recruited him, or maybe he has some injuries and he's just not the same. And those guys you always feel sorry for. But there's another reason. There are some guys who simply aren't willing to put in the work. This is true at every program. It's true at the programs that are run like loose ships, like Clay Helton's was, but it's also true at a place like Alabama. There are guys who are not willing to put in the effort. They are not willing to get in the weight room. They are not willing to learn the playbook. They're not willing to do what it takes. Why should coaches have to keep those guys around? I don't have any problem with it at all. Those guys need to go. If you are not willing to grab an oar, as the Minnesota coach likes to talk about, and start rowing with the rest of us, then get the hell out. And look, that's a pretty common thing. I mean, every football team I've ever played on, you had guys and you looked at that guy's just not committed. I don't want him here. And the coaches don't really want him here. So I don't have a problem with it at all. They can go somewhere else. They can get their education paid for. But if they're never going to play, then why are they taking up one of the 85 roster spots?
Well, I agree with everything you guys said. And I think also a point from my perspective is that, look, there are some guys who are going to realize at some point that they're not going on to the NFL, and they're going to realize that they're not going to play a lot. And so, look, I don't think there's anything wrong if you admit to yourself, you know what, I just want to get my degree and let's just move on. And a degree from USC is fantastic. So, let it be written up. Let me say, I think this way. What we have all gone through at USC, and to get Lincoln Riley to sit there and say, we're going to win and we're going to win now. He's not breaking any rules. He's playing by the rules. And look, if you think it's a cold-blooded at the college level, wait till you get to the NFL, which stands for not for long. So, no, I think he's doing the right thing, and whatever happens to a player, we always wish him the best, but no, it's a question of, hey, we want the best players and let's go for it. Speaking of going for it, it's halftime, and here's some two quick hitting questions, panel. In your opinion, which under the radar USC player, one on offense and one on defense, should fans keep an eye on this fall? So Chris, who should fans, those that are listening, those that are watching this Zoom cast, who should they be looking at on offense and defense? Pick one for us under the radar.
My under the radar on offense is Rayleigh Brown. USC has some good backs. USC has all kinds of receivers. But I think this kid's going to be special. I mean, Bruce Rollinson was comparing him to Reggie Bush. Rollinson's seen a lot of good football players, and he's a serious guy. That's not idle chit-chat. He's talking about a guy who is explosive. Lincoln Riley's going to find an opportunity to use that kid. And I think he'll move him around a little bit. And no, he's not going to get 80, 90, 100 touches this year, but he may get 40. And in those 40, I think we're going to see some exciting things happen. So he's my under the radar on offense. My under the radar on defense, I'm going to go with Brandon Peely. And maybe this is just because I want it so bad, but this is a really big guy who once upon a time had some real athletic ability too. And he's had a tough couple of years, but there's room in that rotation for a big body who can occupy some space and get upfield a little bit. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that I think Peely's going to do it.
Okay. Let's ask Kevin. Give us 2 surprises.
Well, yeah, it may or may not be surprising, but on defense, Romello Height, the kind of guy that I think has a lot of upside, has an opportunity to show it. And I think, but to Chris's point a little while ago, he's willing to put the work in. So from what I've heard and what we've seen, and he's got the length and, just kind of the football IQ. The guy likes the sport and he loves the school, I would assume. And by the way, and we are going to need him to be exceptional because, and Peely too, for that matter, Chris, you're right on target. I mean, somebody got to cover the A gaps and, hopefully Brandon can do it. It's a big ask. So anyway, Romello Height, on
Offense.
yeah, on offense, golly, that's just one of those yikes kinds of moments for me. But I'm looking at the position and then the player in the position in his tight end. Whether it's H-back or true tight end, yeah, that's actually not a bad question. Probably should save that for a later broadcast. But I do like the skill set that, again, maybe this isn't a big surprise, but that Jude Law brings. I mean, he's a little on the, he needs a little quickness in the feet, but he can be your Gronkowski for USC. When Gronkowski was at Arizona, by the way, not when he was at the Pats and Tampa Bay and all that. But he's a mismatch, and I was hoping to see that last year. Didn't get a lot of good looks, for all kinds of reasons. Some of which were not good reasons. It wasn't because of him, and I think he's one of those guys where. Yeah, it's not going to be a lot of touches, to Chris's point earlier. Look, there's so many talented people that are going to need to get the football and so forth. Re-up right on. But I'll tell you, when it's, 3rd and 8 and, they do sneak up a safety or a nickel into the box or near the box. And they go to halves and coverage and some of the other typical things that you see. The tight end will be open, and one of several things can happen. Move on. But one is quarterback will throw the ball to the tight end and convert. 2, quarterback will not throw the ball to the tight end and will run and convert. So there's conversion going on here. And when we look at our 3rd down effectiveness last year, pitiful is a compliment.
Well, that got Mark's attention. Look at that happy face. He liked that comparison. Mark, what do you think? You're your offense and defensive guy under the radar.
So I have a little bit of a different approach. For me, under the radar is somebody who, nobody's really heard of yet. So on defense, I'm going to go with Anthony Beavers because I think that one of those safety positions is still wide open. The one that Kalen Bullock isn't going to be playing. So I have a feeling he's going to be the guy to maybe kind of step up to 2nd year in the program. He looks the part. I mean, he fills a role that's been missing since, Hufanga left. Maybe he's the guy. Another guy on defense, I'm going to cheat a little bit since Eric's not here. I'll take that. Solomon Byrd, the transfer from Wyoming. He's got a lot of experience again
Yeah.
from Wyoming. And I had one player reach out to me, sent me a text message, says, this dude could go.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on him. Now on offense, you could probably just throw a dart and somebody's going to step up that hasn't in the past. I'm just going to go with Gary Bryant. Last year, he seemed to kind of take that next step. He is one of the true speed demons that USC has. And, you know, I mentioned it a little bit ago. When Caleb Williams is running around because the pocket's broken down and the defense isn't sure what to do, when everybody's scrambling, you know, I'm just pointing, Gary, go deep, and I'm hucking it. So he's someone who I think his speed can really show itself this year.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. What I'm going to say is because of the competition at wide receiver, and I think all the focus, obviously, and rightfully so, is going to be on Jordan Addison as the returning Biletnikoff winner, and Mario Williams. I think that someone who's going to be under the radar, from my standpoint, is going to be Kyle Ford. I think this guy really competes if he stays healthy. He brings a unique type of physical body, the ability to high point of football. And on defense, I'm going to go, because when Chris mentioned Peely at basically a nose tackle, so to speak, my thought was Stanley Tuafu'u. I think that he's somebody that, although he was undersized, I think he could be flying under the radar. And I'm intrigued to find out what this weight training program will be result after a summer and into the fall. So for me, that's the ones that are going to be under the radar. All right, second part of halftime is the Trojans have opened as a huge 34-point favorite to defeat the Rice Owls in the opening game on Saturday, September 3rd in the Coliseum. Will this point spread affect the attendance? Mark, is it going to affect the attendance, the point spread?
Oh, no, absolutely not. People are going to show up because it's the first game. The point spread could be 2 points. It could be 100 points. Coliseum is going to be near capacity to see LMU play football.
Well, I hope it's not going to be LMU when it comes defensively. I'll say that. I'm not going to be into 65 to 58 scores, but I do get.
Rice won't score 58.
Yeah.
Rice isn't going to score 58, Greg.
Everybody will be happy with the
that you
55.
have against Rice. You have been constantly week after week bashing this team from your neck of the country, right? Isn't Rice located in Fort Worth?
Houston.
Rice is in
Houston. Excuse me.
But here, look.
Now
I know you're a big Rice fan. I know you pump them up every week. You're the only one that's surprised that Rice is a 34-point underdog. Rice is a 34-point underdog to Kansas. Rice is a terrible football team. It does. So no, it's not going to affect the crowd. You think that if the point spread was 28, people would show up in droves, but at 34, they're staying home? Come on, Cats.
I'll take a 55.
I love it when you bash me, Chris. I think it's a badge of honor. Okay, so Chris, you said that you don't feel that that's going to have any effect. Kevin, is it going to have an effect? Is the attendance going to be affected by the 30 points?
No, because the spread by the time it's game time will be like 48.
Oh, those poor Rice Owls.
Well, they can't. They're not going to.
I agree. I thought it was a great line.
Yeah, it's not. They're not going to play football. I mean, they do the best they can and then get run off the field. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'll just say this. I don't think it matters who SC is playing. I think there'll be so much publicity, such a buildup for this team that it makes no difference. I remember in some of the great years that USC would play teams that were really, should we say, not exactly sparkling, although during Kevin's year, of course, they always played the best that they could play in the preseason. But the reality is this team has got so many potential superstars on offense that people are they're going to feel that vibe. So no, I don't think the point spread means anything in terms of attendance. So with that, We are done with halftime. But before we begin the second half, reminder that you are watching or listening to WeRSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle. This week's WeRSC panelists include Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, Kevin Bruce. I'm Greg Katz. We also encourage you to check out WeRSC.com, part of the On3 network, and become a subscriber to the best coverage of USC football and Trojans athletics. And as a bonus for the curious, WeRSC is currently offering a WeRSC 7-day free trial, which includes monthly or yearly payment options to view our exclusive On3 Plus content that includes breaking stories, analysis, data for USC football, basketball, and the balance of USC athletics. And yes, recruiting is a big part of our website as well. So with that, we kick off the second half and the third quarter with this panel. The Pac-12 Conference has announced that its conference championship game in 2022 will no longer match the winners of the North and the South divisions, but two teams with the highest conference winning percentage. So it's conceivable the Trojans could meet, for example, Utah or UCLA twice in a season. We kind of touched on this last week previously, but now that it's official, what are your initial thoughts on this dramatic championship game change? And does this change make it more or less difficult for USC to make the championship game? The pros and cons in your opinion, Kevin, what's your pros and cons with this new format for the Trojans?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the math sucks. It certainly doesn't provide an incentive to schedule out of conference games that are stout opponents, because if it's based on, as I read it, just the winning percentage, it doesn't matter who. Frankly,
I think it's conference win percentage.
It's conference
win
percentage.
percentage.
That's correct.
Well,
Excuse me.
all right, I guess that helps a little bit. So you're still not going to see people. They'll continue with our tradition of, other than us, scheduling, a bunch of rummies to in and out of conference schedule, with the exception of Stanford. I give them credit that they line up Notre Dame every year, which they're beginning to regret that, by the way. Oh well, too bad. So look, the lack of a championship game and using, just pure math to kind of figure out, like, well, this team will play that team because they got a higher win percentage, seems weak to me. I got to tell you, it just seems like a wussy thing to do. Like, if you're gonna, have a championship game, have two teams that, earned a right to do it. And I might argue that it's not a clear-cut deal. Look, it's not the end of the world. Two teams will show up, they'll play each other, they'll split the proceeds, or they'll divide the proceeds, do all that stuff. And okay, fine. I don't think it makes the Pac-12 look particularly better as a result of doing it that way. I have to tell you, the other conferences that make the big ka-ching, they still play a championship game, last I saw.
Mark, what do you say to this? Do you like what it is now that's official, or what?
Yeah, you know what? I do. I really do. And I know Kevin and I probably I know we see it differently. The way I'm understanding it, strength of schedule is going to be a much larger component of the playoffs going forward, especially as they expand with more teams. So I kind of disagree. I think USC and other, power FBS conferences, they're going to start scheduling like they did back when Kevin was playing. You're going to have your conference schedule, and then your 3 or 4 out of conference games are going to be big time games. They're not going to be the San Jose States anymore. I remember, USC playing Arkansas, Notre Dame, and somebody else from a major conference in the same season.
Yeah, I remember that too, very clearly.
And I think that's the direction it's going back. There's going to be a separation between the 64, 65 FBS teams and the have-nots.
I respectfully.
Absolutely. I hope you do.
I totally disagree with respect to that as an outcome, as a result of using this approach. I don't see that. I see the SEC doing the same thing the SEC has done for decades, which is they schedule a bunch of rummies.
The TV contracts are going to be too lucrative. They're going to have too much of a say. You've got the alliance on one side, you got the SEC, Big 12 down below. That's where the pool of games is going to be scheduled from those teams. That's why I'm so.
All that doesn't mean squat to me with
Okay.
respect to the schedule. Respectfully, I got to tell you that the way the schedules have been created, and they already have been created for the next several years. So how they unwind that will be kind of interesting anyway, assuming they do unwind it. But you look at SEC, even the ACC, they bring in the rummies and run them over. They bring in the rice owls, frankly, and or little sisters of the poor, or just whatever. And it's just annoying to me, frankly, because we always hear about, the week before the championship game. I guarantee you the folks that whoever those two teams are playing, it's going to be the top 4 teams in the SEC, and they're playing somebody that is probably flag football. I'm honestly, and they don't care about the TV revenue because they're going to get the TV revenue anyway. I mean, that just people will pack it in. So, point of view, Pac-12 has a problem. We are not football competitive. Fix that problem, and then all these issues become, less interesting.
Chris, how do you see it?
I think that this business about non-conference schedules really isn't impacted by this change. That's going to be impacted by how big the playoff is. It's going to be impacted by whether or not the major conferences break off from everybody else, in which case they may not have a choice but to play each other. That's not what this is about. This is about making sure that the Pac-12 championship game is the best game possible to get the biggest ratings possible, make the most money possible. And playing the two best teams in the conference, regardless of division, probably accomplishes that. Here's the thing, though. The way the conference is currently set up is there's always a certain amount of unfairness in the conference schedule. Like Wazoo plays Utah and USC this year. Washington doesn't play either one. That's a big deal, right? I mean, that's a big deal. Those are two very likely losses for Wazoo. Now, it may be that Wazoo would lose to a lot of people, but what I'm saying is, in the old days, when the Pac-12 teams would play everybody, you didn't need a conference championship game to figure out who the best was, because they played everybody. They're not going to now. The new format does make it more likely that you're going to have a rematch in the conference title game. But it's always been a 50-50 proposition, right? Because you have 6 teams in the North, 6 teams in the South. You play half of them from the other division. So it was always about a 50-50 shot that you would have a rematch in the conference championship game. Now my math tells me it's probably 72-73%. So it's more likely. I'm not sure that bothers me very much, although it would be a little bit frustrating to have USC, UCLA the last week of the regular season, then have a repeat the very next week. You see it in the NFL all the time, but it's not great. So I don't feel strongly about it. I don't know that I care that much. I do think it's better for USC this year, because you could lose to Utah at Utah and not have to have Utah lose 2 games to play them again. So it's probably a good deal for USC right now. Long term, I don't know that I feel strongly one way or the other.
Well, I will say this, that I think, contrary to what many people that I've read, I think this is more difficult for USC. They can't hide in another conference or division, I should say, and not have a good record, shall we say, compared to, let's say, the North Division. So they have, to me, very little margin for error. And I think that, it's going to be a real dog-eat-dog type of a race, because you're going to look at 1 through 12. I think the haves are going to be in better shape in the long run, and the have-nots, you better enjoy the Weed Eater Poland Bowl or whatever it is, because I think you're never going to see the Rose Bowl and some of these other teams. But I think if you ask yourself, who are the 3 top teams in your opinion for 2022, that's going to be the big fight. Is going to be Utah, going to be Oregon, is going to be USC, and one of those teams is going to lose out in this type of setup. So it will be very interesting to watch. And I think the schedule will be different in 2023. I'm sure they'll make adjustments to it. I'm sure that Merton Hanks, who's in charge of football for the Pac-12, with his NFL experience, they'll figure out a way of how to make it as fairly competitive as they can. So let us move on. Now I know nobody's going to be going out to get a cookie, because you know what this means, don't you? Of course you do. If you follow our show and you've watched it, hopefully you do. It's that time. It's time for the lighting of the symbolic Chris Arledge Coliseum torch. And in lieu of the traditional USC marching band rendition of the William Tell Overture, this is where we will light the torch. Hopefully everyone can see it. Let me make sure that everybody can see it, because I know how those of you that are watching on or listening, you don't see it. But there it is. That's a beautiful. Doesn't that look like the torch? It does look like the torch. Don't say no, Arledge.
Stop asking the question.
You know this is. You know what teasing for Arledge is that I make him wait before he actually is allowed to go and give his no doubt great pontification.
You're teasing everybody.
I just wanted everyone to see. I want you to see. I think I'm going to put Arledge down the vertically on this. I think, in fact, you know what? I won't be shocked. Now, let me put it this way too. You want to know how much of an ego Arledge has? Take a look. For those of you that are watching on TV or Zoom, look at his background. What is in the background? The Coliseum torch and the peristyle end. I mean, if that isn't self-serving, I don't know what it is. Of course, I could say as well with Kevin Bruce, those of you that are not watching or are watching on TV, there's Kevin Bruce, number 50, his background shot of Ohio State, making a tackle there along with Gary Jeter and Danny Reese is in the background. I see Dale Mitchell. So these former football players, they have an investment here. So I'm not going to make you wait any longer, because I know you're all anticipating what Chris is going to talk about, and so am I. So without any further ado, it's time for Inside the Trojans Huddle version of Musings with Arledge with our beloved Chris Arledge. Go for it.
Thanks. Hey, Greg, are you a fan of the Godfather movies?
Yes, I am.
Good, because if you're not, then you're not going to enjoy the next couple of minutes. The Godfather movies, 1 and 2, not 3, 1 and 2, two of the greatest films of all time. There's a series right now where they're showing the making of the Godfather. I don't know if you guys have run into this. It's fantastic, and I've been watching this series, and it occurred to me the other day while I'm watching it that if you want to understand what's going on right now with SEC football, which is of course one of the great criminal enterprises of all time, then it helps to be familiar with the greatest film of criminal enterprises of all time. So that's what we're going to talk about. Greg, I believe in America. America has made Nick Saban's fortune, but who can Nick Saban go to for justice?
Yes,
Nick
sir.
wants to go to the NCAA like a good American, but if he does, the cheaters go free that very day. And now it's all falling apart. The Dons, they're fighting. The SEC families are going to the mattresses. Look, this stuff was supposed to stay within the SEC families. The SEC has its fights, sure, but they try to keep these disputes within the commission. These are businessmen. They have rules. They show proper respect. And they try to keep the recruits and the championships inside the families. They don't want violence with each other. Blood's a big expense. But Jimbo Fisher went out and broke the rules. A little cash, some cars, sure. That's the way things have always been done in the SEC. That's a harmless vice. But paying out huge sums of money to lock up half the 5-star recruits in the country and land what is on paper the best recruiting class in history, that's stepping over the line. Now, I get why Jimbo did it. He's desperate. His was the first of the big over-the-top coaching contracts, and he was paid by all those oil men to come in and win the big one. And he has not come close. Only one season in his 4 years at A&M has he lost less than 4 games. And that was that weird COVID season. I don't even know if it counts. So Jimbo went all in. He came with suitcases of cash, shocking money, even by SEC standards. And Don Saban was not pleased. For the first time in a very long time, he lost a lot of recruiting battles for a lot of top prospects. And a man in Nick Saban's position can't afford to be made to look ridiculous. So Nick did the unthinkable. He went outside the families. He talked about the SEC's business. Now, he knew better. He knows you never tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking, but he did. He went to the press. He whined. He called Jimbo a cheater, and he probably thought he'd get away with it because he's Nick Saban and nobody's bigger than him. But this time somebody stood up to the Don. Because for Jimbo Fisher, this wasn't strictly business. This was personal. Fisher was angry and hurt. This is the SEC. An SEC coach from Alabama, no less, is going to complain about paying players? And Fisher knows something that the rest of college football is just now starting to figure out. Nick Saban and Alabama are not necessarily the same anymore, not under these rules. They're vulnerable. The rules have changed, and Alabama may not have the money to keep up. Fisher doesn't think he has to take this from Saban anymore, so he goes public too, and he denies Saban's charge. Was the denial ridiculous? Of course. Fisher's salary cap this year was the highest in Texas. Jerry Jones doesn't spend that kind of money on players. You watch Jimbo's terrible acting job at that press conference with the tears in his eyes, and you want to shake Jimbo and slap him, tell him to shut up. You can act like a man, Jimbo. Jimbo says he doesn't buy players. I know it was you, Jimbo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart. Don't tell me that you're innocent, Jimbo, because it insults my intelligence and it makes me very angry. Look, the denial was foolish, but the denial wasn't what's important. What's important is what he did next. He called out Nick Saban. He mocked him. He attacked him. He dared people to look into how Saban has built his empire. Because Fisher doesn't think he has to fear the Dawn anymore. He says Alabama's all done. The Alabama family don't even have that kind of muscle anymore. They're getting chased out of the South by Kirby Smart and the other families. Let's face it, Nick Saban was slipping. 10 years ago, could Jimbo Fisher have gotten to him? No, but he got to him last week. Fisher's press conference was an act of defiance, of anger, of vengeance. Was it wise? Jimbo, is vengeance going to bring your son back to you or my boy to me? Now it's all out in the open. Former players on Twitter talking about Nick Saban's recruiting practices, the money, the cars, the stuff that was supposed to stay hidden. And it's open war, family against family. And everybody's watching. Lincoln Riley, Dabo Sweeney, Ryan Day, even Fredo was watching down at Georgia Southern. Oh, that was nothing, Nick. Jimbo didn't mean nothing by that. Sure, he flies off the handle once in a while, but we're all good friends. You know who else is watching? The Bear, Paul Bear Bryant, legendary coach of both Alabama and Texas A&M, and he's horrified by what he sees. You can almost hear him explaining to St. Peter, embarrassed, I have a sentimental weakness for my children, and I spoil them, as you can see. They talk when they should listen. College football has been turned on its head. The SEC is at war. And all the while, Lincoln Riley is getting ready to make the college football world an offer it can't refuse.
Well, I will tell you, that was certainly outstanding. I thought in the end, you were going to say that Jimbo Fisher should not go to any toll booths and just
Wait, probably careful. Yeah,
that's right. James Caan would be very proud of that, to be honest with you. Well done. Well done. All right, let's get to that fourth quarter now. With that in mind, we were talking about, in fact, this is a great segue. After watching Alabama coach Nick Saban and Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher eat each other alive over allegations that Texas A&M is buying players, if you were Lincoln Riley, what would you be thinking about right now, having made the move to go to USC and not having to stay at Oklahoma, which will soon be going into the SEC? Your thoughts on that, Chris? I think it's appropriate that you do an addendum to what you just spoke about.
Lincoln Riley knew what he was doing when he left Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a great football program, and I make fun of the Oklahoma fans all the time on here, and deservedly so, because they're Oklahoma fans. It's a great football program, but Oklahoma is going to the SEC, and it is a very tough neighborhood. And Oklahoma does not have a ton of blue chip recruits in its backyard. It has to steal them from Texas and Texas A&M, and has to go throughout the South and get them. Has to go to Southern California and get them. Lincoln Riley is right where he needs to be. He has the resources, including the money, I think, to land the types of players that will make him competitive with the SEC powers. And I'm not sure that Oklahoma is going to have the ability to do that over the next 5 years. So I think he's very happy with what he's done.
Kevin, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, no, Lincoln Riley's happy. He's barbecuing out in the backyard right now. He's making a potload of money. He's enjoying the weather and the fantastic recruiting activity given the rules as they exist today. Now he's a happy guy, and you know, OU will figure their out. Venable actually, I think, will do pretty well there, and that's great for them. Beyond that, I don't care. As long as we do well, and I think we will. So there you go.
Mark, do you care? And do you think that Lincoln overlooking the Pacific Ocean is just saying, better you than me?
I think Lincoln is taking on the role of Michael Corleone. He's going to do business the legal way. He's going to take football and make it legal, cheating legal. So he might, yeah, he's on Lake Tahoe. He's overlooking the ocean, barbecuing, whatever. Lincoln Riley and USC is the beneficiary of this, period. Look, everybody knew what was going on in the SEC. It was that unspoken truth. You know, you don't talk about what happens in Vegas, and they're talking about what's going on in Vegas all day long right now. So Lincoln Riley is in a place where he's going to be able to take advantage of the situation. And if the junkyard dogs in the Southeast want to eat each other up, go for it. There's enough drama there that players can come out West and create their own drama in Hollywood.
Very good. I will conclude this fourth quarter by strictly saying that if you don't think that Lincoln Riley didn't have this in the back of his mind when he took the SC job, not specifically because of this, but the idea of going into the SEC and duking it out under what we now know is above the table, NIL, now it's legal. Who needs it? To be honest with you, who needs it? So I think he did know what he was doing. I think it's part of the reason he came. And I see nothing wrong with that. It was, if anything, it was a good business move. All right, we've come to overtime, questions and answers, where we're in overtime to answer some of your viewer questions and panel answers in a free-for-all answer format. If you'd like to submit a question that we can answer or give you our opinion, just go to either the Gary P or the We Are SC members message board at wearesc.com. From there, you'll see the topic thread regarding questions inside the Trojans Huddle. So question one comes from Corona Trojan fan. Guys, the numbers game is just a bit more interesting considering the fact that Jordan Addison's number at Pitt was number 3. Carson Palmer's retired number is 3. Already there's been a bit of a controversy about Michael Jackson's prior use of 13, which is Caleb Williams' number from his OU days, which is yet to be resolved. And then there's the case of incoming freshman Rayleigh Brown, who had 4 at Mater Dei and is already being, which is already being used by Mario Williams on offense and Max Williams on defense. What do you think at this point in time of this question about what's going to happen with this number situation? So guys, just jump right in here.
I think we're kind of at a point where there are, you don't have enough numbers for the amount of players. So you might have to bend the rules a little bit with, you know, with the player signing off on it, so to speak. In other words, Carson saying, you have my blessing, go ahead and wear number 3. I
agree. I think he's going to say, I agree. Mike Garrett did it with Darnell Bing and bringing out 20 after, I mean, some point, I mean,
you're running out of numbers.
What's that?
You're running out of numbers. You have to do something.
Yeah, well, you got to remember there's offensive 20s and defensive 20s. And as far as, you know, people say, well, look at all the numbers. In fact, we can illustrate that for those of you watching behind Chris. The big jerseys underneath the peristyle end, those are Heisman Trophy winners. Nobody's going to sit there and worry if someone's wearing, you know, Carson Palmer wants USC to win, period. So he's going to do that. And I don't think it's a big problem at all.
I don't like retiring numbers. I would like there to be, I mean, number 3 had a great history even before Carson. I mean, Keyshawn was number 3. It was, I would like to see guys continue to wear these numbers. I don't like retiring the jerseys. I thought that was a bad idea at the beginning. So I'm all in favor of these Heisman winners putting their numbers back in circulation, especially if it's to land. You could imagine, you know, Reggie is not necessarily known for his altruism towards his alma mater, but you could imagine a situation where you have a superstar back who's number 5 who would love to wear Reggie's number, and Reggie gifts it to him in order to help land the kid. I'm all in favor of that sort of thing. So I hope Carson gives his number up, and I hope these guys start to give their numbers up regularly. I think that's just the way it should be done.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Hey, look, at a school like SC or a Notre Dame or Ohio State, there are so many great players that come by, and it's that look, SC is going to have more Heisman Trophy winners in the future, and to sit there and say we're going to mess around with the jersey, who cares? In my opinion, just Carson will be happy if SC wins. That's the bottom line with him. He'll say, Kevin, did you want to mention something about the situation?
Yeah, my apologies for the little techno there. Hey, jerseys, whatever. I was always just look. I didn't care about the number as long as I had one. All this other stuff is like whatever. It's distracting. It's distracting, but to me, it's unimportant. To the players, to some extent, there may be some importance to it, but ultimately, it's like, how much playing time do I get?
There you go. There you go. All right, let's move on here. Question from HUD SD. I suspect that means San Diego. After Addison and Mario Williams, what is your order of which receivers are most likely to see the field in the first 3 games? Well, I guess it depends on what you think the pecking order is. Anybody want to donate their opinion on this one?
You're going to see 4 wide receivers out most offensive plays. So you're going to see it. This is not an offense that has an X and a Z, and that's all they have. So you're going to see a bunch of guys out there. I think the 2 names that are mentioned, I think Addison and Williams probably lead the team in receiving, but you're going to go 8, 9 deep at wide receiver. There are going to be guys playing all the time from the get-go.
Any other comments on this one, or we'll move on?
Yeah, that's a question I'll be more willing to answer after the 3rd game to kind of see what's going on. That's just too hard to predict.
After the 3rd game, you're going to predict which guys are going to see.
I think we'll have an idea of what the rotation's going to look like a lot better than with 9 guys.
Okay. I think you'll do it, Mark. I feel good that after 3 games, you're going to accurately.
I'll even say I'll cut it down to 2 games, Chris. How's that?
Okay, here comes
Rice doesn't even count for that
Mark,
matter.
you're getting intimidated. Don't let him.
No, I'm not intimidated.
Do not let Arledge do that to you.
Trust me, he's not intimidating me.
Okay.
It's just
after
if I really want to get nasty about it.
Okay, here we go. Oh, let's get ready to rumble.
The question wasn't. It's not a good question. How's that?
Gee, I'm.
Oh, I thought you were going to get nasty with me. You got nasty.
No. You see what he did, Chris? You see what he did? He turned it on me. It's not a good question.
Well, you didn't ask the question.
Ask the question. You're just the delivery of the question.
HUD SD.
Let's go.
HUD SD asked the question. And it's
Hey,
like,
HUD
okay.
SD, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry that Mark feels that way about you.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it, HUD.
You're a
Don't
valued
lose any
member
sleep over it, HUD.
You're a valued member of our viewing audience. I hope this doesn't turn you off.
All right, well, let's see about, okay, question 3 from SC, the one in Orange County. How many 1,000-yard rushers will SC have this season? How many 1,000-yard receivers will SC have this season? And what do you think the 2022 season prediction? Name the losses, if any. So you want to start off, Mark? Do you have an opinion on this? I know you have an opinion.
I'm one of those guys. I'm one of the guys who's doing the math again, and I don't see a lot of teams outscoring USC this year.
Okay, let's get specifically. How many 1,000-yard rushers will SC have this season?
One.
Okay, you 2 agree with 1. Okay, I think it's possible 2. Possible, not probable, but possible. Kevin, did you have an opinion on this?
I say it's 1 just because of just sheer number of touches. Look, we're going to have a lot of breakaway plays and long scoring situations that are going to reduce the number of plays per game. and plays per game drive your 1,000-yard rusher. So I think in that respect, one is pretty good. And we've got the talent to get a good one with the amount of touches that we're going to see. So what's the other part of the question?
Okay, how many 1,000-yard receivers will SC have this season?
2.
I say 2.
Jordan Addison and Mario Williams. They'll both have
Agreed.
over 1,000.
Agree.
Yeah. Chris is really reaching out there for that one. So
Yeah, I had to do hours of research to come up with that. And I'm not answering the record prediction one right now. It's too early for that.
it's
Thank you, Mark.
yeah.
A second ago, I was vilified for saying it was a bad question. Whatever.
Mark, on this
I
show,
didn't say it's a bad question. It's a great question. It's just a couple of months too early. SC the one, I'm not saying your question is bad. You're a very fine viewer, and I appreciate your participation.
I'm a HUD fan. So there you go.
SC the one and I hang out at the basketball games. He'll get over it.
okay, well, I'm going to say that the season record, if all things would go right, I would be disappointed if it wasn't at least at the minimum 10-2. And the losses to me would be at Utah. And I'm
Don't
not
say
as
it.
confident
Don't say
that
it.
Notre Dame.
Don't say.
What do you mean? I'm not going to say it because you say don't say it?
Who's
Don't
Notre
say
Dame
it,
starting
Max.
quarterback, Greg?
What?
Who's Notre Dame starting quarterback this year?
He
We don't
is
know.
a kid out
We
of
don't.
San Diego.
Huh?
I can't remember exactly, but he's
Exactly.
San
Who's their
Diego.
starting running back?
What are you? The sports
I'm
information
just,
department?
Greg, if you're going to go out and say Notre Dame, at least feel confident behind
Okay,
it.
Mark, if that's the way you're going to be.
Hey, I got
not
a
seen-
better one.
I've
Who's
not
Rice's
seen this
starting
side of Mark
quarterback?
before.
Hey,
He's
Greg,
trying to
who's
get back at me. Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Who's Rice's starting quarterback, Greg?
Know who their starting quarterback was?
Do you know who their starting quarterback is this year, Rice?
You're not allowing me to pontificate.
I
Okay,
just wanted an
the
answer.
starting quarterback was actually Christian McCaffrey's younger brother. If you read my column, you would know that.
I didn't. As soon as I
Okay,
saw
because of that, I'm not going to answer the second part of your question.
As soon as I
That's
saw-
rude. That is rude and innocuous. I'm not
I
doing
always,
that.
I always read your article, but as soon as I saw you were writing about Rice, I said, no, I am not gonna support this. I am tired of Greg trying to pump up Rice. I'm
Okay.
tired of it.
I understand. Mark, who's the offensive coordinator for Rice?
He was a coach at Stanford, right?
Offensive coordinator for
I don't
Rice.
know because I don't care.
Well, that's a bad attitude.
It's
That's a
Rice,
bad. Go to
Greg.
your room.
It's
You ever leave
Rice.
that on-3 room that you have? Okay, now I'm
Oh
gonna
my
get
gosh.
YouTube commentary. Catch, shut up and just move on. All right, so we'll do that. Okay, now, this one I don't really know about, and I have no idea about it, but I'll read it anyways. From the Trojans gift horse. Can you guys please analyze the holistic financial implications of the new Pac-12 championship format? The only thing I'll say is I think it'll be a sellout if SC's in it. So there'll be a financial success. That's all I got to say on it.
I have no thoughts on that question.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Give me a week or two. I'll let you know.
Holistic.
Kevin's gonna do an analysis of it.
Yeah.
I was trying to tie the question together with the word holistically involved. I was like, where are we going with this?
Well, you know what? Stop criticizing our listeners, Kulkin. What I was trying to say is that.
Okay, you explain it, Chris.
I don't want.
What
to
does he-
explain it.
What does he mean by holistically?
I mean, he wants us to analyze it completely. He doesn't want us to look at just a little sliver of the issue. He wants us to look at the whole thing, and I appreciate that. But I really don't want to. But here's the thing. Kevin is an expert at turning around broken down, failing companies. And that's essentially what the Pac-12 has been for some time now. So I think if somebody in this group is going to do an analysis of this, it probably is Kevin Bruce.
That's why I need 2 weeks.
All right, our last question from El Socio Mexper. My question to everyone would be, why does everyone nationally, especially in our own conference, continue to point out how Coach Lincoln Riley has never built a team before and Oklahoma was handed to him already built? I mean, Oregon's new head coach is a first-time head coach and was only a defensive coordinator for a few years running. Coach Smart's defense, of course, he's at Georgia, was already established. Utah's coach continued what Urban established. Coach Shaw continued what Coach Harbaugh established at Stanford. And all the rest of the teams in the Pac-12 were nowhere near dominant teams. Just don't understand how Coach Lincoln Riley is in question when he has a 55-10 record as a head coach with multiple Heisman Trophy winners, first-round draft picks, top 10 recruiting classes, Big 12 championships. But everyone is worried about how Coach Lincoln Riley, CLR, is going to build a championship team. I would say he would know how to build and maintain a team at a high level, correct? Thank you, and fight on. Comments?
It's not an illegitimate criticism to say the guy hasn't proven himself as a program builder. That's true. Almost nobody has, right? There are very few coaches that have been at multiple stops and built programs. Urban Meyer's one, right? Urban Meyer's a guy who shows up and he turns a place around, and he's done it many times. Not a lot of guys have done that. But I don't have any concerns about this issue with Lincoln Riley because, one, he's a fantastic recruiter who happens to be in a perfect place to recruit top-notch talent. And he's a great offensive coach. So the combination of those two things means that USC is going to be good. Whether or not he can build a program that can compete with Georgia and Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, I don't know yet. I don't think anybody knows yet. But is he going to be able to build a program that dominates this conference? Yeah. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, there are fans of other teams that want to pretend that's not the case, and they want to tell us that's not the case, but it is. Lincoln's coming for you, UCLA and Oregon and Washington and all the rest. He is, and he's going to whoop on you. Whether he can beat Nick Saban, I don't know. We'll see.
Every now and then USC seems to get lucky. They pluck a coach out of nowhere that does really well. John McKay, Pete Carroll, maybe Lincoln Riley's that third guy. Who knows?
You don't spend that kind of money on luck, brother. That is a commitment.
You understand where I'm going. It happens. You got to pick someone.
You got to get lucky with the record. It's not a question of getting lucky with the coach. Lincoln Riley is, look, think about, some of the other names that have come and gone that I'm glad they've come and gone with respect to leading our program. So I'm good on that. We're paying them a lot of money. And money is, a nice fuel. It's a surrogate for saying that we think you're really good. We also have really high expectations. So be good and get it done.
I will conclude this by saying I think the most fascinating thing about Lincoln Riley up to here is how he's basically, in my opinion, I've said this before, he's taken USC as almost like an expansion franchise in the NFL because that's how low we had gotten, and how he's able to turn it around in this idea that, okay, when he's at Oklahoma, he got the Bob Stoops inheritance, so to speak, but now he really is his own because he inherited horrible situation at USC on all fronts, on and off the field. And to see what he's doing, he's pretty darn smart. He came into this with a plan. He knew that rule as far as the one we talked about earlier with the NCAA and, getting players within 1 year of a new coach to be able to cut players, so to speak, but they could still stay if they had their scholarship. He has got this masterfully built, and I find it fascinating to see how he's building it because he came in with a plan, and it's going to be exciting to see how that continues to build. So once again, a reminder, if you have a question or comments for our panel, go to either of the We Are SC message boards, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle or listener questions. And with that, it's a wrap for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Big thank you to this week's panelists, Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, and Kevin Bruce. And a special big thank you to all you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Till next Tuesday, this is your host, Greg Katz, reminding you all to fight on, everybody.